I'm so excited because today's video is going to be a really fun one and a first for me. I posted a review of a book on my channel and I got a comment asking me if I did author reviews. Your girl only has 20 subscribers, so that's not an opportunity that has come my way yet, but it did now, and I was sent a book to review, so I was super excited about that. If you guys watched the last book review on my channel, you'll know that I don't hold back. So the book that I have to review for you guys today is called Terra Nova, and it is by MtG. And this is honestly one of the best books I have read in a while. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the book with no spoilers, and then I'm gonna tell you when to stop watching if you don't want any spoilers, because I'm gonna get a little bit more into it. Hopefully you guys will get this book and read it as well and can talk about it with me, because right now I don't know anyone that I can talk about it with, so I would love for you guys to do that. I will absolutely link the book down in the bio because I really liked it that much. Like, I'm not affiliated with this or anything, I'm just gonna try and find it on Amazon or something and link it because I just loved this book. So I will read you the back of the book first and then we will get into it. Evangeline is living the life of a normal teenager, going to school and hanging out with friends until mysterious severe symptoms begin appearing. After passing out in the middle of a party, life as she knows it spirals beyond her grasp. She is diagnosed with a rare genetic blood disorder that causes her body's white blood cells to kill the red ones. In the delirium of her deteriorating health, a door to a parallel world opens before her. However, once she steps through it, the portal closes and she is unable to return to Earth. The place Evangeline now finds herself in is called Terra Nova, a world wherein vampires rule supreme. With no traces of humanity left to speak out, curious but afraid, she quickly learns that Terra Nova is not the shadow side of Earth, but rather the tragic result of government experimentation. In order to survive, she must keep her mind open and accept the changes her body is undergoing. Soon enough, those who she initially thinks are murderers become her trainers, whose help she must enlist if she ever hopes to return home. And soon enough, a romantic bond begins to bloom. Meanwhile, Evangeline's brother and friends back on Earth try to figure out what happened to her, how the government is involved, and how to bring her home. Unbeknownst to any of them is the mysterious outcast Bambi, whose secrecy disguises her power in making a devastating choice, save one world at the risk of destroying the other. That was a lot, but we will get into it. So this is the no spoiler section of the video. I was very excited when I was presented with the opportunity to be sent this book. Along with the book, I was actually sent a cute little magnetic marble looking bookmark, which was super sweet. And the author sent me a beautiful thank you card for reading her book. And Marlena, thank you so much for sending me the book because I loved it. I got this book and I started it and I was a little confused at first, and I feel like it does take me a minute to get into books sometimes. This is a pretty lengthy book as well. It's 48 chapters, it's 433 pages, and it's heavy. It's not a light book, even though it's not like super hardcover, but it's a pretty big book, so when I got it I was like, okay, let's jump into this. Also, another note is that this is the first book in what's going to be a series. I don't know how many books are going to be there, and I'm so frustrated that this is only the first book and that there aren't more of them right now, because I need more. And I'm so thankful that I loved it so much that I want more, but I'm so frustrated because there is not another book. On the website for the book, I'm pretty sure it was the website or maybe it was in an email, they told me that the book was like very similar to Twilight, or if I liked Twilight I'd probably like this book. And I was very interested in that because I'm 22, I just graduated from college this past May, and I graduated as a theater major, but in my last semester I had to just take some classes and get some credits, and one of the classes I ended up taking was a film class, and the subject of the film class was actually vampire films, which I didn't know when I enrolled in the class. And once I got there and I saw that the list of movies we'd be watching consisted of
Nosferatu, 2 versions of Dracula, The Lost Boys, Vampire's Kiss, Interview with the Vampire, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 2 episodes of that, Blade, I Am Legend, Twilight, Daybreakers, Only Lovers Left Alive, What We Do in the Shadows, and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
So I got a lot of vampire education last semester that I didn't know I was gonna get, and I wasn't mad about. So when I was sent this book and was shown that it was a vampire book, I was like, I'm kind of ready for this, because I spent an entire semester analyzing vampires and the different ways that they can be used throughout stories. I'm not gonna super get into the type of vampires in this book because there wasn't anything crazy different about them. One of the most interesting things to me was they all appear very gray and shriveled and old looking until they drink blood, and then they look youthful again, so they kind of look deathly when they're not getting human blood. So I guess that's the biggest specific to these vampires trait. And now onto my notes. This is the part of the video where I am going to be talking about the plot, and there are going to be some spoilers. So the book started out with our main character Evangeline and one of her friends Cynthia in a cage. It was very interesting to start the book off with 2 girls in a cage. It was a little bit like, what? This was the prologue, so once we got into like chapter 1, you started off right away with Evangeline having hunger pains and having these really strange dreams about gray faces, which we will later learn are the vampires that can communicate with Evangeline through her dreams, but she just has these dreams about these horrible gray looking creatures and she draws them, and so the creepy pictures of these beings are plastered all around her room. And for a regular high school girl to be, you know, drawing these and dreaming these and having these horrible looking illustrations all around her room is a little unsettling. It's really interesting looking at my notes and now having finished the book and being like, I see what was being done earlier. Evangeline has her 2 best friends, Val, who's like her genuine best friend, and then Cynthia, who is friends with them because she is. And there's a group that initially I thought would kind of be like an opposing group to them of wannabe vampires, and Bambi is kind of the head of that group. Not so much that she's very bold, but she is kind of the face of the group. She is a girl who was adopted when she was 6 or 7, and she has told everyone that she's from another world and that her mother was a vampire, and she's waiting for her to come back for her. So everyone thinks Bambi's a little crazy, but the goth, into magic kids, you know, latch on to Bambi and they become her friends, you know. So Bambi dresses in all black. She knows clearly that she came from somewhere else, which doesn't seem logical until we are told that there is another world. So we follow Evangeline for most of the book, but we do get a couple glimpses into Bambi's life, as well as the life of the vampires that are watching Evangeline. So in Terra Nova, there are 2 lands. That's 4, this is 2. There are 2 lands. And the land that we mainly focus on is Latina? I don't know, but this is the land that we focus on. The vampire world is kind of like medieval times, and they've stopped progressing from there. And so the people who rule are named Julia, and she has her 2 sons, Eros and Evan. I don't know that Evan was described visually, like, I mean, they're all kind of gray, and like he was described as young, but I want there to be a movie of this, and I want little Jacob Tremblay to play him because Jacob Tremblay can do no wrong. Picturing him as a sweet little vampire, I want a movie of this and I want him in it. But Julia and her 2 sons, Julia is the one that goes into Evangeline's subconscious, like when she's dreaming, and communicates with her to try and... They think Evangeline has the cure to vampirism. And so Julia goes into Evangeline's dreams to try and communicate with her, but it's a very difficult thing to do, to communicate subconsciously between worlds, and the party that you're trying to communicate with has to be willing. So Evangeline doesn't know this other world exists. She doesn't know that they're vampires that are trying to communicate with her. She just sees these very disturbing looking creatures in her dreams, and she's interested in it, but she's also afraid of it. So she's willing enough to let them enter, but not willing enough to fully be able to communicate with them. So Julia is the one that is usually seen in her dreams and communicating with her, but sometimes our boy Eros pops into Evangeline. I can't even like not smile when I'm talking about it, which is maybe problematic on my part, but our boy Eros does sometimes join as well. And in one of the early chapters, we hear him talk about the time difference, and so every year in our world in Earth is 2 years in Terra Nova. So they've been watching Evangeline for 24 years of their lives and 12 years of hers, which is pretty crazy. So I guess Evangeline is like 18 because when Evangeline was 6 years old is kind of when this whole thing started. The reason there are the vampires in Terra Nova is because somebody from apparently the human world, a child infected with being a vampire, came to Terra Nova and started turning everybody. And at first they used it kind of as a weapon, and then being a vampire and, you know, the natural instincts of that kind of took over, and pretty much most of Terra Nova was turned into vampires. In order to remain alive, they need to maintain part of their humanity, so they all live for something. They live for their human family members that were able to escape 24 years ago. They live for their vampire family members that are still there. They live for the hope that there will be a cure. They live for different reasons, and if they don't have a reason to hold on to, if they're not strong enough, they will go mad and they will be killed, and, you know, put in sunlight the way typical vampires can be killed. So there's a lot going on in that world, and Evangeline has these hunger pains and these you know, physical issues, and she goes to, you know, a typical high school party, and she like passes out, and so she ends up in the hospital, and her brother is actually a doctor at the hospital. Raphael is his name, and he isn't like her doctor, but he's there, and he knows how to talk to the doctors, and the lady doctors, and we find out that Evangeline has a blood disorder. So the blood disorder that Evangeline is diagnosed with is actually the same blood disorder that the author was diagnosed with. It's called paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. I hope that I said that right. It says the series concept emerged when she, like the protagonist, was diagnosed with this blood disorder, and her then boyfriend, now husband, joked that she was becoming a vampire. So that kind of stemmed the whole idea for this book. And in the book it describes the blood disorder as Evangeline's red blood cells are being produced mutated, so her immune system doesn't recognize them as part of the body, and they kill them off. So we find out that Evangeline's blood is at like a 50-50% mutated and not mutated. I think it's like 48%, and if it's 50, it's like really bad, and she's like almost there. They do have a support group for PNH that Evangeline does definitely just not want to attend, and it seems like maybe there's a possibly good reason. I mean, she doesn't know this reason, but one night when Evangeline was 6, something was calling her outside of her house.
Not like Evangeline, but like calling her, like mentally.
Like I had mentioned, that back in Terra Nova there was some sort of human vampire child that came from this planet and traveled to Terra Nova and infected them all. And at one point, a prince from Terra Nova, he was trying to transport him and this little vampire child, and 2 citizens from Terra Nova escaped into the world, and that is Bambi and her mother. So Bambi's mother, Lola, was turned into a vampire, and Bambi was still a human. So Lola had saved her child, and that was what was keeping her alive, but it was also very difficult for her because her child was a human and she was a vampire, so she had to really struggle with that. But the night that Bambi and Lola came through the portal, as well as the prince, Evangeline was called to the portal, and she was able to escape it, and her brother saw it as well. Nobody believed Evangeline and her brother that there had been some guy with, you know, a magic sword and a lightning bolt that had, you know, appeared in a field. You know, it all was very like, y'all good? So no one believed it, so they kind of dropped their story, and they never really spoke about it again, but they both knew deep down that there was something wonky going on that night. And one of the guys who was investigating what had gone down happens to be the guy in charge of the PNH support group now that Evangeline is like 18 years old. And they realize that shortly after, and they're a little bit concerned about it. After Evangeline's hospital PNH discovery moment, she decides that she really wants to explore what happened that night 12 years ago, and maybe her blood condition has something to do with it, or she just needs to figure out why she's having these dreams and what these people want that are seemingly trying to communicate with her through her dreams. So she reaches out to the closest, creepiest person she knows, which is Bambi, and tells her basically that she wants to have a party where they try and open up a portal to another world. When the portal was first opened up between the worlds, it was through a sword, and when Evangeline was 6, she actually was able to get that sword and hold on to it and hide it, and she still had it. So a bunch of kids throw this party, and the whole point of the party is that some of them are going to sneak away to a separate room and perform a little ritual and hopefully open up a portal to another world. And Evangeline and Bambi are very into it and believing, and everyone else is very much not, because why would they be? But sure enough, something happens and they are able to open the portal, and Evangeline, Bambi, and Cynthia pop through the portal and end up in Terra Nova. As soon as they end up in Terra Nova, Bambi is flooded with true memories of what Terra Nova is and was, and why Bambi lives in America, you know, instead of, or do they live in Canada? I think they live in Canada. Why Bambi lives in Canada over Terra Nova, and Bambi hops out the portal and takes the sword with her, leaving Evangeline and Cynthia alone in Terra Nova in a world of vampires. But they don't know it's a world of vampires yet, so they're not as scared. But they still did go through a portal, so they're still very scared. So the two travel for a while, end up at the town in Latina, and when they end up there, it's daytime, nothing's really going on. They find the vampires eventually, and the royal family, who are a little less royal now that everyone is all vampires and kind of equal. But Julia, who is the queen, She takes Cynthia and Evangeline and shoves them into a cage made of a material called dorium, which is something that the vampires can't touch or else they'll get burned. So she fights her own want for human blood, which none of them have tasted in 24 years. So it's a really big, thing that she did that, and she shoves the girls into a cage made of dorium so that they are safe and things can be explained to them. Now that they're in the other world, there's gonna be like way more spoilers. So Julia, who did save them, ends up communicating through Cynthia's mind, and she ends up convincing Cynthia to leave the cage, and they all feast on Cynthia. And so Evangeline is left alone in the world, and Evangeline forms this relationship with Eros, who is 24 when he was turned, and he looks very gray and, like a vampire, but when the family feeds on Cynthia, he gets kind of cute, Evangeline just does not know what to do. She can't escape this world, and her friend is now dead. So Eros has had this weird relationship with Evangeline, and he had it with Cynthia as well, where he would kind of call them wenches and make fun of their very revealing clothing, from being in modern times, and make fun of the way they acted, and make fun of the things that he had seen from watching them over the years, and how they've interacted with boys, and stupid teen lingo, and like, I don't know, imagine some prince from the Middle Ages watching your life from when you were like 6 to 18. Like, he's probably seen some rough stuff and some stuff that you would want to erase from your mind. So he's very judgy of them, but he's also definitely very interested. And once Evangeline kind of gives up, she, taunts Eros, and she's kind of like,
bite me, like I'm here.
And he does, because why wouldn't he? And when he does, though, it's very intimate, where he isn't biting her initially, and she literally questions if he is going to rape her or not, because she's like, this is very sexual. I'm pretty sure that where he ended up biting her was a little bit lower than the usual region where you would get bitten by a vampire. I'm pretty sure he bit her chest. And they don't know what they want to do with her. They don't know if they should just let her die or if they should turn her to be like them. But the choice is kind of taken from the vampires because of Evangeline's blood disorder. I don't fully know the logistics of how it worked, but because of the disorder, she's able to be half human, half vampire. So she can still go out in the sun. It's going to burn her for a minute, but then she's going to be fine. And she has gained some of the skills that they have, but like not the super speed and strength, or maybe like some of it, but like not as much as she could. She's basically half human, half vampire. She also doesn't want blood, which is very interesting. So Evangeline has gone through these changes, and now that she's there and they don't want to eat her 24/7, she's able to form better relationships with these people, and she really sees them, for who they are and not as monsters. And so she starts, becoming friends with some of the people in the town. Some of them are still skeptical of her, but she starts becoming friends with them, and she also starts training so that she can journey to the other kingdom and try and save the human race and turn these vampires back. They want her to somehow end up back in her world, and they think that she needs to go over to the other kingdom where the guy who had the sword from all those years ago was, and see what's going on. So all while being trained, the cutest relationship develops between Evangeline and Eros. As a vampire, they can't be like sexually attracted to people, I guess, because the want for blood takes over the want for anything else. But that don't stop Eros from flirting with her, and she doesn't feel safe sleeping alone in her room at night, so she ends up sleeping in the same room as him, and they have this really cute banter where he calls her Tornado Head and she calls him Blockhead, and like I probably shouldn't be rooting for them to be together, but all I want is for them to be together. And those are my own personal issues, but they have these adorable scenes where they're both reading. She gives him a kiss on the cheek at one point, and I'm like, thank you, I've been waiting for this. Evangeline sleeps in Eros's bed every night, and she, knocks out under the covers before he even gets into the bed, and it's understood that he sleeps on top of the covers next to her, so they don't like go under the covers together. And one night he decides to get in the bed while she is still awake and get under the covers with her, not touching her or anything, but that kind of sets her off a little bit and makes her very nervous, and they have a whole conversation about their relationship and what it is and what it isn't and what it can't be and what it, I just loved their relationship, and as soon as we really started getting into it, the book comes to an end. they send Evangeline on the journey that they have been training her for. It's gonna take like 20 days or something, or 40 days, I don't know. It's gonna take like a while for Evangeline to walk to the other place, and she doesn't know what she's gonna encounter, if she's gonna encounter the humans, if she's gonna encounter the vampires. She's gotta figure out how to fight and defend herself. So the very last chapter of the book is the chapter that sends Evangeline on her way. And that is where we are left. And I need to know what happens. I need more content with Eros, is what I need. So yes, I think I pretty much talked about everything I wanted to talk about, but I absolutely loved this book. I definitely would recommend it. Like I said, I am going to link it down below. Comment down below and tell me if you're going to buy the book too, and if you'll be able to talk to me about it after you do, because I would love to have someone to talk about this book with. But I definitely can't wait for a second book and maybe a third. I don't know how many are going to be in this series, but I am really excited, and I'm going to be following along to see what happens, because I'm invested. So I hope you guys like this. I want to say thank you again to Marlena for actually sending me the book, because clearly I enjoyed it. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!